Okay, Joe Casey with Casey Aviation and on the Malibu Guru podcast and the Casey Aviation YouTube channel. I'm glad you're here. And there's a guy I'm glad is here, which is Bob Sherwin. I've been flying around. Bob, how many years have we been flying?
Just finished 8 years.
8 years. So I've been flying with Bob for 8 years. A JetPROP pilot out of Santa Fe, New Mexico, and just an all-around good guy. This is going to be fun for me to be able to talk with you about JetPROP flying.
Me too. Thank you.
All right. Hey, let's go back into your earlier days for a little bit, because I always like to, where'd you come from? Because there's a bunch of people that listen to this podcast that are sort of have the idea of, can I do what that guy did? And let's paint the picture. Your aviation past, when did it start?
Well, my father was a pilot, and he was a Bonanza guy. And, you know, when I was little, we were flying around with him. And I decided to get my license when I was 28. This is in like 1983.
All right.
And
everybody can do the math and figure out how old you are now.
Yeah, exactly. So first plane was a Bonanza. Mm-hmm. And after that, a Columbia 400.
Okay. So it's a little 400's a fixed gear, a little faster airplane, side stick on the side.
Right.
Pretty good Continental engine, pretty good airplane. It goes pretty fast.
Right. And then I got a Lancer 4P, an experimental.
All right. So you said, I want some speed.
Yeah, I thought that would be really fun to go fast, and I wouldn't do that again, frankly. I would not have an experimental. You know,
I've got a little bit of Lancer 4P time, and I've talked to a lot of people that have flown it, and most people that get in it love the speed, love the cool factor of this little hot rod airplane, but at the end of the day, I don't know very many people that go back to it, especially if you're business flying, personal flying, got to carry something with you.
Yeah.
Little bitty tail, not a lot of money being invested into this airframe, but kind of cool.
It was very cool. That's why I wanted to do it. I went to Oshkosh with my dad, and we got paid for a flight, and I thought it was awesome. And then I decided that's what I wanted. But I probably had 8 or 10 emergencies in that plane, and many of those were actually after the mechanics that worked on it. One of them left a screw. They'd taken off the what is it? The under the wing where it
the fairing under the wing.
No, it was actually to servo it was the servo they were trying to get to, and he had set a screw up on top, and it got trapped under the horizontal stabilizer. And I didn't realize it until on takeoff, and plus he crossed the wires, so up was down and down was up, and that was my first time I had to land and come back, and the next day
hold on, because that would have reversed it where you had to push to make the airplane go up.
Yeah, everything was backwards on the trim.
The
trim, so I'm trying to take off, and anyway, I was lucky to figure that one out in midair.
You were lucky to have survived that.
Yes.
So many people, matter of fact, we have a horrific JetPROP accident that happened whenever the cables got crossed on an aileron. Just simply hooked them up improperly, and now left was right and right was left. Yeah. And it had 2 stellar pilots on board and ended up crashing right out of Spokane, Washington. It was going through an annual inspection, and it was dastardly in that respect. There are some airplanes where you can hook those control cables up improperly. And it goes to, I want to harp on one little thing here. One of the greatest things you can do when you fly an airplane is when you get in the airplane, not if the engine started and you're making a bunch of noise, but before the engine's even started, do a flight controls check. And now what you can hear if you got binding cables or something, it sounds just different, especially coming after any maintenance event. Really you want to do a flight controls check and make sure that you've got it, that you have this down correctly.
So when I took off the next day, I couldn't level off. The screw was caught in the horizontal stabilizer, and it just wanted to keep climbing. And so now I'm way out and at altitude, and had to make an emergency landing in Salt Lake City, and all I had for vertical was power.
Wow.
And and those were both mechanic caused, and I think there's a big difference between a certified plane versus an experimental, where anybody can work on it. And there's
also a thing for having an airplane that has enough other airplanes in that. In other words, like Bonanzas. There's a lot of Bonanzas, and you can go hunt around and find out where the great Bonanza mechanics are, and go to one of those. But there's in the Lancer 4P, there's not that many Lancer 4Ps, so there's not that Lancer 4P guy that literally sees Lancer 4Ps every day. And that's one of the reasons we opened up our maintenance facility, is that we do PA46s. So our mechanics look at PA46s every single day. That's all they say. And they get good at the PA46 because of that. So I think there's an advantage to being one airframe and having a body of mechanics that can do it. And, if you look at the PA46, there's 2,700 airframes made now, somewhere up in there, and probably 2,300 or 2,400 of them still flying. So that's plenty of room for plenty of mechanics. So you got some really great PA46 centric mechanics that do nothing but that. Places like Sun Aviation and Meade Aircraft and Midwest Malibu and Malibu Aerospace, us out on the West Coast, High Performance, and these are shops that do nothing but that. There's some other shops that do the PA46, but they do the Pilatus PC-12 and the TBM and the Honda Jet and whatever as well. Yeah, I like taking my airplane to a PA46 centric shop. We own Casey Aviation Services, and we think that adds that layer, because you have somebody that works on it all the time. Maybe that's part of the story here.
Yeah, when I had my shoulder surgery, I wanted a specialist
that works on shoulders. That's right. That's right. Exactly. Yeah. How many shoulders have you done?
2.
Thousands. Yeah.
Both.
Oh, you've done. Yeah. Yeah. Understood. So you want the right guy. You don't want you don't want the hip guy when you're getting your shoulder done.
Yeah.
So agreed. So, okay, you had a Lancer 4P, but eventually you sold this thing.
I did, and then last plane before the JetPROP was a Cirrus SR-22.
Okay.
And very comfortable, great plane, enjoyed it. Huge difference between that and a JetPROP.
Yes.
And the biggest difference is safety, frankly. I mean, to have a pressurized airplane to get over the weather instead of, bouncing in and out of it, going through it. And the SR-22, I believe, had a ceiling of 18,000. And at one time I was on a cannula and trying to go, and it's, flying, hanging off the prop and tail low, and just didn't have the power to get me out of trouble.
That's right.
And so with the JetPROP, it's been like a mini airliner, and you just get up and get out of there, and you got plenty of power. Right. I
tell people, if you have $1 million and you want to invest into an airplane, would you rather have a turbine engine with 260 knots, climbing at a couple thousand feet a minute, never hanging on the prop, never having a power question, or would you rather have a piston airplane, unpressurized, with cannulas, that has a parachute? And 100% of the time, I'm going for that turbine. Yeah. There's a place for that piston with a parachute. I'm not dogging the airframe. Mm-hmm. I'm saying, if you got $1 million, where am I going? Yeah. And the answer is, for me, and the way I think, and the way people in this market think, the JetPROP is, if you got $1 million, would I rather have an old JetPROP or a brand new Cirrus? Yeah. Give me that turbine engine all day long. Yeah, twice on Sunday.
And I think it's a great transition plane for people going into a JetPROP. It's an easy transition from a Cirrus.
Yeah. Great airplane. I'm not knocking it, but which one would I rather have? When so you came into the JetPROP, and you didn't immediately come out of that Cirrus and into a JetPROP.
No, I had like 12 years after we sold the Cirrus before I flew again. Just lifestyle and different things, business, busy, and so eventually, it was about 12 years later, I wanted to get back into aviation. I was really missing it.
And you called us and said, "Hey, can you help?" And we said, "You bet we can." And we ended up working with you to find a very nice JetPROP that you now own and now fly. I remember when we first got into one.
Yeah, I got two stories that that were early times in going through my training with you. But the very, very first flight was the day we picked it up, the day we purchased it, and
Minnesota. That's right. So we were up at Malibu Aerospace.
That's correct.
Yeah, great shop. We love Malibu Aerospace. They do wonderful things there. And we picked the airplane up and
Yeah, it was a blizzard, and and again, I hadn't flown for 12 years, and you're like, yeah, we're ready to go. I said, we're going to leave in this weather, and you said, dude, you have a JetPROP. I said, wow, and so this was just first time in one. I'd never even flown in one when I bought it. I just did all the research and knew that this is what I wanted, and we take off and just a blizzard and whiteout, and before you know it, we're on top and blue sky and cruising at 27,000 feet.
Yeah,
and
you knew I'm in a new world.
Yeah, it was so different. Would never do that in a piston aircraft,
right?
And without the icing and all those things that come with the de-icing equipment and so forth that make it safe. So that was one experience, and then
I'm gonna let you end then in just a second. But
right.
but it is amazing, the JetPROP, all the PA46s as far as that's concerned. The icing, good icing airplane. The JetPROP is a very good icing airplane. Has a couple flaws in it as far as the ice bridging that can happen in the tail. But on this particular case, if it's just because it's snowing doesn't mean you can't go flying. There are conditions where, in other words, you can have snow and blizzard conditions, but it's cold enough that there's no threat of airframe icing once you're up in the air. And really the question is, can you get up in the air quick enough? Because once you're there, you're good. And sure enough, the JetPROP will get out of there. Then there's also who wants to hang around Minnesota in January? not me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that was, let's get out of there and let's get somewhere where we can go train.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's a second.
So we came back to Texas, and you had planned, I can't remember, one of your son's birthday or something, and you were going to take him to the San Antonio Spurs game.
That's right.
And you were going to be taking him in a different plane, and I said, and it was going to delay the training when we could get back together. And I said, well, why don't we take mine, and we'll just do the training on the way. So we take off and go to the game, and we get out of the game at 11:30 at night or something like that, and it's pouring down rain. And again, in my experience, I would never be flying in a situation like that. Right. It was just not something I was comfortable with. And you're like, no, this is going to be great. And so I remember, you loaded in the approach and all that, and said, just watch this, and so I'm in left seat, and total IMC conditions and nighttime and pouring down rain, and all of a sudden we break through the clouds at 200 or 300 feet over the runway, and there's the lights, and you said, go ahead and land it. And I was like, wow, again, just another league, something I was not used to. It was just incredible.
Yeah. And to be fair, you live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is
330 days of sunshine.
Exactly. So that it was, we're down here where we get low ceilings. And matter of fact, you train today in low ceilings pretty much all day long, and we can get that stuff. You don't get it that much up there. If I go back to that, I got 3 sons. All of them love basketball. Basically, I had somebody for all 3 Texas teams. Ben loved the Houston Rockets. Sam loved the Dallas Mavericks. Dave loved the San Antonio Spurs. And so it was, there was every year we went to a game of some, or we tried our best. You know what I'm saying? It was like, okay, it's your time. We're going to that game. And usually it was like if the Spurs were playing the Mavs, well, that was like, double prizes. And so it was probably one of those where, the boy, we got to go to a game, and it was, that day. So it was
great.
Oh, it was fun. It was just a barrel of fun. So that's for sure. Okay. So you got your JetPROP, got trained, and you've enjoyed it for the last 8 years now.
Yeah. I got December of 16.
Any regrets?
No, this is by far the best plane I've ever had, and want to get another one.
Yeah, exactly. It your upgrade is a good. You have a 1989 JetPROP, and it's a great JetPROP. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's better JetPROPs in the world in terms of there's newer and nicer and lower hours and better panels and all the different things that go out there. And I think that's what your goal is just to do something of that nature. What I wanted, we talked just a little bit about, over the years, you've had a few incidents that came up. One of them happened fairly recently. let's talk about, because what I really want to talk about on this episode is when things don't go right, and maybe there's not a checklist in the book that in the POH that lets you handle that emergency perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to deal with that. So recently you had an event that occurred. What happened?
Well, I was coming out of descending into Santa Fe and coming through the clouds. And fortunately, right after I broke out below the ceiling, I had the whole panel go black.
Just complete panel.
Total blackout on the panel. And I heard a pop, and I was able to find a circuit breaker that popped and reset it. But at that point, I'm within 10 miles of Santa Fe, and I know where I'm at. And by the time it had rebooted, and there wasn't time to program it and so forth, so I just hand flew it into.
Were you
Santa Fe
during the day?
It was daylight.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So you just
Fortunately,
have good conditions in which to have a complete panel. What happened?
Yeah, so it turned out that I don't know if when they're taking the interior in and out for annuals or whatever, if one of the seats landed on a circuit breaker cartridge that holds a circuit breaker that broke it.
Yeah.
And created a short.
Yeah, just shorted the whole thing out.
Shorted the whole thing out, and they didn't find it until it happened a second time.
Ah, so this happened twice.
Happened twice last year, and it was probably the next flight or maybe one flight in between. And this time I'm going into Jackson Hole, and I'm at altitude, about 26,000 feet. Whole panel went out, and found the circuit breaker and reset it. Panel came back up, reprogrammed in my flight plan, and everything seemed fine. And then on final, I'm putting the gear down, and the left main doesn't come down. And I don't know how it was related. Somehow it was related to the shorting of this. And fortunately, from the recurrent training that we do here every year, I knew how to do the manual drop the gear, and never had to break off the approach. Just kept going and
got the three green lights,
three green lights, and made the landing. And that's when they found that it was this circuit breaker that was been crushed that caused a short. So it's just a fluke.
A lot of times we think of using a checklist as, okay, when this happens, you do that. And when that happens, you do this. And I'll tell you, an emergency procedure is rarely straight out of the book. Like we try to think, okay, I'll just memorize the POH or I'll memorize portions of it. And that can be fine for some regards. But at the end of the day, it's you using your aviation wherewithal, everything that you've got to be able to handle an emergency, because there's not my circuit breaker got squished and shorted out, canceling out my whole panel in my left gear.
Maybe the only person on the planet that ever happened to.
No, it's not. And let me tell you this. Let me branch it out just a little bit for the JetPROP community out there. And this does not happen in the Malibu Mirage, Meridian, MSAT 500, M600, M700. This happens in JetPROPs because the electrical system in a JetPROP is not that robust. And if the amperage is exceeded, that basically if you get over about 130 amps on your amp gauge, now you can do this very easily by turning all of your heats on, all of your lights on, stall warning, pitot heat, everything on. Don't drop your gear, because what's going to happen is that hydraulic pump is going to spike the amps up over the load of your circuit breakers, and your two main circuit breakers will pop. Your panel will go dark. You will not put the gear down. We've crashed several JetPROPs simply by overloading the electrical system. Now, the way you avoid this in a JetPROP, in my opinion, is just don't turn on your stall warning heat. Now, stall warning heat's never needed in a PA46, and the reason why is that if you got a bunch of ice all over your wing, your wing's going to stall prior to the stall warning even warning you. So the stall warning's almost a useless useless tool in flying. You don't want to be down there flying where your stall warning's going on. Your wing's going to stall prior to it, because your wing shape has changed by the ice. You're now a test pilot with a bunch of ice on the airplane. So, but if you take the stall warning heat, simply don't turn it on in a jet prop, you're probably not going to get this phenomenon because your amps aren't going to be so high. But the point is, can you exceed a amp capacity in a jet prop and have a dark panel, literally everything on your panel going dark? And the answer is yes. You can have that through an overloaded amp, overloaded circuit breakers by just overloading them, or you can have what you had, which is a complete weird anomaly that you could never expect, which would be a crimped or a broken circuit breaker housing that just didn't allow it. It got damaged by either maintenance or interior or something happening. So emergencies are weird.
I did have the Garmin 275 was still live.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Because it's hooked up to the battery utility bus and is providing battery power to that. But again, you want to go, about the last thing you want to do is fly a GI 275 down, when you're not used to it.
Yeah.
That can be, and have a dark panel otherwise. Oh my gosh, that would be a disaster. But it has happened in jet prop. We have crashed jet props, literally where people they put the gear down, got a dark panel, couldn't figure anything out from there, couldn't find the circuit breakers. Those two big circuit breakers are on your front panel, and all the other circuit breakers are on the side panels.
Yep.
So it's not like, in the heat of the battle, you're not going to go, you might not even find those two pop circuit breakers, and you can be in a world of hurt. This is where type-specific training comes in and being able to know this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Fortunately, I heard it pop, and I looked down, and it was like
right there,
right in front, and probably the easiest ones you can find because they're right in front there.
And that leads ourselves to wearing a good set of headsets. A good headset will allow you to hear some of these weird noises. I mean, you're in a loud airplane, and you heard a pop from the circuit breaker popping.
Yeah.
That tells you two things. Number one, your hearing's pretty good. Number two, you got a good set of headsets on your head.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. So, all right. Now, I know another thing is that you flew somehow, some way near a thunderstorm and ended up with hail. Tell me the story.
Yeah, I was coming back from Dallas, and it's before I got up on top. I was climbing out, and you could see two storms that were converging, and they were vectoring me between them. And I said, does it look like I'm going to have enough time to get there? And they go, yeah, from what we can see, it looks good. And they were wrong. and all of a sudden, I've got hail, and so I found myself in a situation that I in retrospect, would have said I need to take a vector around this and made a hard left turn and gone around and try to beat through the opening of two converging storms.
Right, yeah. And the moral to the story is convection, thunderstorms, however you want to call it, is extremely dynamic. They can grow so fast. I mean, a big thunderstorm can grow, more than 6,000 feet a minute. You can have 100-mile-an-hour wind straight up, and it's just phenomenal how fast they can grow. And there's a definite threat of a storm growing up into your flight path, and that's why we would really want to have that radar trained downward if you're at high altitude, or to be able to see it. It's trained downward a little bit anyway, because it has a fan that we're able to. So we're able to see some down, but the idea, if you're at an altitude where a storm can grow up into you, we really want to be looking down.
Yeah.
And we really, to a certain degree, and thunderstorms are just simply dangerous. They have all kind of things that can affect you. For you, the downstream, I guess the downstream penalty you had to pay for flying near a thunderstorm was you got hail on the airplane. What happened from there?
Fortunately, the insurance, I had hardly even noticed like a hairline in the windshield, and I think it's like a $30,000 windshield that was replaced, and a few dents on the boot that.
So some boots got replaced?
They got boots replaced and a new windshield, and unlike our insurance where you have a deductible, they paid 100%.
Yeah.
And that was amazing.
My experience, or my client's experience with insurance in the aviation world, has been almost 100% exceptional, meaning where I'll tell you, the insurance companies are in the aviation, our level of aviation, are significantly different than a car insurance world where they're trying not to pay the claim and figuring out how they can weasel out. I've seen insurance companies pay claims that I thought maybe not. I don't know, because the guy was late after his training. He didn't get his training done in time, or some other thing that might have invalidated his insurance, and yet they paid. And I'll tell you, the insurance companies are just really phenomenal. It's one of the good. They're expensive. You're going to pay for it, but it really can be a good thing. In this case, you had to get a new windshield. You got some new boots. Airplane didn't care otherwise, as far as this is concerned, and no downstream problems from there, other than the fact you probably had some downtime that you had to face, and the insurance company dealing with, you had to deal with it from that point on. Great. So that's a healthy response. It's a good thing. It could have been a lot worse. Yeah. If there's a moral to the story, I think for you, that story might be, don't always do what ATC says to do. Would you agree with that?
Yes, definitely. Ultimately it's pilot in command, and you get to make the choice and the decision. And I could tell as I was approaching it, I don't know, this is not looking good. And at that point, I'm thinking, well, they know better, right? They maybe see stuff I can't see on my, but visually, I think you always have the advantage to see what's going on around you and what's safe and what's not. And I would have asked to be vectored around it.
Yeah. Tell us about lithified technologies. What do you do for a living?
Yeah, so we have a company that's a geotechnical company that has for many years been figuring out customized formulas to turn soil into stone. So lithification is, by definition, how Mother Nature turns sand into sandstone, or clay into slate, and soil into stone. And everybody's heard of petrified wood, but very few people have heard of lithified soil, but it's the same concept of turning soil into stone. And so we were able to figure that out after about 5,000 tests in 7 years, and a lot of money.
You were an overnight success.
It was a long road. And so ultimately we figured out the matrix to do this with thousands of soil types and even mine tailings that don't even resemble soil anymore. And so it turns out it's like a green road technology. So we can take base course, which is the standard underneath like an asphalt highway. It's just sand and gravel. And it has a strength of 25,000 PSI as measured by resilient modulus. This is one of the tests that the DOTs do. The asphalt has a strength of 500,000 PSI modulus.
Wow.
So we have the ability to turn the base course into 2 million PSI modulus. And so by making it as strong or stronger than the asphalt, that means you can reduce the thickness of the asphalt by three-fourths, 75%. In fact, I'm meeting tomorrow with Texas DOT Aviation Division to talk about how to build runways that are waterproof. Water can't get underneath it and doesn't create the heaving and the frost heave in the freezing temperatures, and ultimately roads and runways wear from the top, but they fail from the bottom. So our technology is about that.
Yeah, it's so cool technology, and I love the aspect of how aviation for you has kind of come full circle in the sense of you've been flying for years and years and years, and now all of a sudden your company, all of a sudden it happened, but this is one application of this really creative technology that you've come up with. Your company is, I'm sure it's not just you, but I'm sure you have a team underneath you been able to come up with stuff that really now is going to be able to help us in the aviation world to come up with runways where the water pours through the concrete or pours through the liquefied soil. And maybe we have less standing water. So when you land, you have less chance of hydroplaning. You have, it's green in the sense that it really does. It's good. You're using existing soil and things of this nature. Am I saying it right?
Yeah. So not liquefying the base, but lithifying the base.
Lithifying, yes.
Yeah. So we did match the permeability of asphalt, because asphalt will let water go through it. And so we have the ability to create a foundation that's 100% hydrophobic, or that can allow water to go through it and stay bound and non-dispersive, so that it doesn't come apart, it doesn't erode, it doesn't saturate the foundation. It stays, like you can take a core sample and put it underwater forever, and it's not going to disintegrate or erode.
Yeah.
So that's one of the technologies. We have another one that we've developed with Los Alamos National Laboratories that's being used to cap abandoned uranium mines, and it's something that nobody talks about, but it turns out that it's one of the biggest environmental issues out there. There's 15,000 abandoned uranium mines in the 17 western states, and 50 million people living within 10 miles, and it has airborne radioactive dust. It penetrates into the water tables. 50% of the water in the 17 western states have uranium contamination in it, and for the people that live near them, they have 10 times the cancer rates and birth defect rates. And so we've come up with a technology that we've developed with Los Alamos National Laboratories that checks all 5 boxes of blocking gamma radiation from making it to the surface, stopping airborne radioactive dust, radon, making it to the surface, and so forth. So we're excited to see that get commercialized, and it's just been named best available technology by the 8 national laboratories, and so hopefully we can play a role in solving some of those environmental issues.
Yeah, it sounds like great technology that y'all are bringing to the fore, and I think that's wonderful. Your aviation future, JetPROP, you going to keep flying it?
Yeah, you just show me one that I can't stop thinking about.
Yeah, it is fun because we have a JetPROP that we were able to pick up that a client of ours asked us to sell, and I think it's one of the prettiest JetPROPs I've ever seen. It's just beautiful paint, beautiful interior, perfect avionics, and it's just an absolutely gorgeous airplane.
And it sold everybody, so don't talk about it.
Yeah, we'll delay this 2 weeks to let you sell some lithiumized whatever. Yeah, lithified. There you go. Bunch of fun stuff. Yeah, that's for sure. So, thank you so much for joining the Malibu Guru podcast. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the 8 years of flying these things. I hope for 8 more. It's people like you, which is why we do stuff like this. It's amazing to me that when you have our clients that come in that tell their stories, they get involved in some of the neatest and weirdest stuff, which allows us to get involved in that. And it's just a bunch of fun to have you here. Bob Sherwin with Lithified Technologies and JetPROP pilot. I just appreciate you being forthright, telling us your story and letting other people learn.
I appreciate it. And for anybody thinking about getting into a JetPROP, Joe and his team, there's nobody better that knows this industry. They specialize in it, and just great to train with them. They're awesome. So
thanks, Bob. Appreciate it, Bob.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if you like hearing stories about cool people that fly JetPROPs and how they do it and what they do, and this is a good story to listen to. And remember, the things that emergency procedures that happen, sometimes the procedure doesn't fit the emergency, and you need to have your whatever aviation wherewithal you've got. You got to apply it to that situation. It's good to hear Bob's story and apply it to what you may have come down in your future. Hopefully you're able to deal with it as well as Bob did, and I hope your PA46, JetPROP, whatever you've got flying goes well. Joe Casey and Bob Sherwin with Casey Aviation, the Malibu Guru podcast, signing off.